If the Texans take an offensive lineman at 42 or 59, YouTube might be burned down. What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to a brand new episode of The Lead. Your host, as always, Harley Dugan. We get into a reaction video right here of Mina Kimes. She's talking about our Houston Texans. She's talking about some of the needs, and she thinks they're a well-rounded football team. And this is going to be fun to get into. So the Houston Texans definitely had their way this offseason, as we all know in many of my previous videos, as well as y'all watching the Houston Texans this offseason. We all know that D'Amico Ryan, CJ Stroud, Nick Caserio, Cal McNair, they did their things, and they decided to go out and have another really good offseason. And it started with free agency. Mina Kimes and this other guy who I have no clue who he is, but we'll listen to his take as well. Talk about the Houston Texans and talk about some needs maybe that are still left on this team, or do they have a need at all? And that's very interesting because Texans fans don't necessarily, I think, share the same sentiment as national media is with the glowing reviews of the Houston Texans free agency. I think it could have been a little bit better. A lot of reviews of an A for free agency. I'm not saying it isn't great, but I would give it a B, 85, straight 85. I am not giving it an A, perhaps. I still think there's some holes on this team that Mina Kimes and this guy didn't get into. So go ahead. Let's go ahead and get into this video. It's a little lengthy one, so here we go.
When I pulled up this depth chart, I was like, this is a good football team. Receiver, still something that they could work on. Although huge on Nico Collins, Tank Dell comes back. That's a position that I would like them to address. Corner, they did add Jeff Okudah. We'll see if that, it's kind of a reclamation. Stingley was excellent. That's the other position that would get better at. Outside of that, Trevor, offensive line depth, what are you looking at with the Texans?
For the Texans, I just have question mark. Wide receiver, interior offensive line, corner, I guess. I'm just excited to watch this team again next season because they got so far ahead of where we thought that their rebuild was going to be with what D'Amico Ryans did for the rest of that team, what Bobby Slowick did from the offensive side of things, and then, of course, what CJ Stroud was able to do and slingshot their rebuild into some winning ways. Wide receiver is where I go naturally just because I selfishly want the best playmakers on this team now because Stroud's awesome. But you mentioned Nico Collins, you mentioned Tank Dell. They still have Noah Brown, who I think is fine. Robert Woods is somebody who I like as a preferred veteran in this league.
What?
No words. Let's continue.
I like Xavier Hutchinson. I like John Mechie, right? So it's like even the depth guys at wide receiver I'm okay with. Now that they don't pick in the first round, now you're picking in the second round. Well, okay, are one of those second round receivers going to be worth it for you? Probably not. So again, I guess I go to more depth, more competition on the offensive line. I love the Danielle Hunter signing. I also love the Denico Autry signing. I think that Autry's signing went underrated once Hunter signed there for them.
It's the opposite, right, of the Jags where I'm like, oh, they signed all these players, but I still view them as needs. Whereas the Texans, all these players, I'm like, okay, good. You don't need to draft. You're good at edge. You're good at linebacker. Joe Mixon, however you feel about the deal they did.
I don't know about linebacker just quite yet. I understand they did some Azeez Al-Shaair. They have Christian Harris, who blossomed into what looks to be a star in this league. I still think linebacker's not out of the question.
I feel like they're pretty set at running back. This just is such a well-built.
I don't necessarily agree with the running back take either, but I'll let her cook.
Built football team now.
Little Omaha Productions there. Yeah, that's Peyton Manning, everybody. For people that don't know, Peyton Manning does have his own productions company called Omaha Productions. So with that being said, I do disagree with her running back take. I think the Houston Texans need another running back. I'm not necessarily high on Dameon Pierce. And I'm not necessarily low either. I'm not giving up on him, but I just don't know what to feel about Dameon Pierce. Pause. To be honest, this guy, I don't know what the temp check is on Dameon Pierce. I don't know what he is. It's plausible that, he can have this comeback into what we saw his rookie year. That's very possible. He's still a very young player, but at the same time, how possible is that going to happen? He's going to have to adjust to this scheme, and he struggled in it this previous year very immensely. This is not a power run scheme that he's quite used to with the previous regime. No, this is zone running. All right, you got to read and react a little bit. You got to run slow and go fast through. Like, that's exactly what you got to do. It's something that we saw Arian do many, many times. And I hate to throw that as the benchmark, but we know what a successful running back can do in this scheme. And his name is Arian Foster. All right. Dameon Pierce has to mimic some of that playing ability. So regardless, Texans still need a running back. All right. They still can look at wide receiver. I like the point they made there. I have no problem in being hungry and grabbing a playmaker for CJ Stroud. Anything to make this offense better, I'm all for it. Anything is an upgrade to me at the wide receiver position in this draft is better than Noah Brown, is better than John Mechie, is better than Xavier Hutchinson, and is better than this current version of Robert Woods, who could still be cut by any time. Who knows? But at the end of the day, they mentioned offensive line depth. Get that crap out of my face. If the Texans take an offensive lineman at 42 or 59, YouTube might be burned down. I'm not going to lie. This channel will be burned down alive. Like, I would lose it. I would absolutely lose it. They mentioned cornerback. I understand that there is significant questions in my point of view of what in the world are they doing at the secondary, because especially safety, they are thin at safety. Jimmy Ward was not healthy all year. He has injury history. The Houston Texans have some problems in the secondary just because Okuda's an injury history guy. CJ Henderson as well. Derek Stingley as well. And how much are we banking that Jeff Okuda / CJ Henderson are going to be one of the guys that can continue at least playing at a decent level for cornerback too? I don't know how plausible that is either. I like Jeff Okuda and I like the potential he still has. But you are banking on coaching ability, and I have no problem with it. DeMeco Ryans seems to be a hell of a coach and should have been coach of the year. The Houston Texans seem to be banking on that aspect, that their coaching ability will ride out the potential of these players. It will carry them onto good football players. So hopefully it does come to fruition. At the end of the day, I still believe that the needs for this team, yes, secondary, cornerback, safety, I still do believe that they could use another wide receiver. I love playmakers for CJ Stroud. And then I think that interior defensive line, if you could get someone that's a stud for the interior defensive line, man, the D-line could be really cooking this year. You could have a scary D-line moving forward. As always, guys, go Astros, go Rockets, go Texans. You have a blessed day.